Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah. We meet again. My name is Khalid Muhammad Ariff from Sekitar Synergy Sindiri and Berhad. Alhamdulillah, I live till this day, 15 Rabi'ul Awal, 1442, 1st November actually, 2020, year of the COVID. Right, before I go on, please let me remind myself and all my other Muslim colleagues, please do not watch this video when you are in the mosque listening to especially the khatib's khutbah, or perhaps you are in any religious events, learning sessions, etc. With the ulama reciting from Muktabar Kitab. So please don't turn on my video. Now, first of all, thank you very much, YouTube, for having such an amazing platform as this one, and I'm honored to be part of the resources who share experience and a little bit of my knowledge in videos of the YouTube. Okay, we are still in our effort, obviously relentless effort in linking safety, health, and environment management. Alhamdulillah. Today, this video, we are going to look into one activity, which is furnace repair. And we'll take a look at that activity and try to identify as much as possible environmental aspects involved, but in my part, I'll give a few examples of the environmental aspects and try to relate it with the safety, health, and environment, how they interact, how they affect each other. So without further ado, let's go to the next video, and not forgetting, thank you subscribers and viewers of my videos. You are wonderful people. Hopefully this will bring happiness and benefit to you and all your other associates. So here we are in a furnace repair. I was doing an audit in a client's premise, a close affiliates client, and I was fortunate to be able to witness a rare sight that people like myself might not have that much opportunity to experience in terms of observing how furnace repair is being done. And amazingly, our friend here are good expert hands from Europe. He was imported to Malaysia because of his expertise in doing this work. And this man is almost 70 years old and he is doing fine. I am amazed. So how I wish I could live long enough to reach that age and still be able to do young men's work, as you could see. Okay, first of all, this is the furnace, which is an environmental management system, a situation called abnormal situation. Remember, we have got to address environmental aspects in normal, abnormal, and emergency situation. This is a planned maintenance work. So this situation now involves the generation or the input and output of environmental aspects in a abnormal situation of this particular furnace. So for this video, I picked something which is not common for many of us in our conventional environmental management system, which is used furnace. We'll pick this and let's take a look how used furnace as an environmental aspect would be affecting safety. Let's take a look. Here's the line. So from used furnace, let's bring it to the mainstream of effect. Let it bring down to safety. See what happens. All right. Okay, we are in safety now. All right. Safety health officer, industrial hygienists, safety health consultants, trainers, you are better experts in this, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Now, used brick furnace, as I observed when I was looking around while he's doing his work, he's a friendly guy. I like him actually. And I try not to talk too much to him because I don't want him to talk while working because I could see hazard. The hazard is, he is carrying these bricks and this brick has got weight and I try to lift the brick. Well, okay, not bad. I mean, for 1 or 2 bricks, it doesn't hurt me. But if I were to stay 8 hours a day, probably for a week, working like this, I think I am getting into trouble with my body. So the safety issue in terms of potential hazard, as you could see, is the brick weight itself. He got to take it out of the system by a certain systematic unergonomics body position, the posture while working. But this guy is good. He knows how to bring his body into a posture to be able to do the work because he's an expert. And I could see that sometimes he's got to knock part of the bricks, and that will expose sharp edges of the bricks itself apart from other sharp objects around this area. And he's got to move around, so this brick is posing some form of potential hazard. And on top of that, he is working in a narrow space, literally, well, not too narrow for him, but for me, it's going to be narrow. I'm much wider in terms of size. And he's got to work in, I would say, a constricted workspace. Although he moves around very well, he's got to bring down the old bricks and put it somewhere, and before he's able to bring in the new bricks. And he's working alone with 1 or 2 assistants to bring him things, items once in a while. And in that term, with such brick lifting, the brick might not weigh so much, but could you imagine the frequency that he has got to move around with a brick to and fro, to and fro? I think he'll be covering a few kilometers in a day just walking around this area. And he's got to lift it, bring the brick out, hack it out, take it down, assemble it, lay it somewhere, arrange it as used furnace bricks, and that is posing some potential hazard, as you could see. And at any time, if he is not careful with that, or if this work is done by novices, there is a potential problem, because these bricks and the adhesive that bring this brick to be glued with a furnace wall, because there are a few other layers of bricks, is using some form of compound. And that compound, as I know, you could see that compound over here. There you are. There's a bucket. You see that? That is the compound that he is using. And I checked the MSDS that he has with him. Seriously, it is not friendly. to human health. We are talking about some silica content, some amorphous compounds, and we'll discuss that later. And that would cause also for his work, his physical work of bending, climbing, pulling, pulling up, pulling down of materials. Uh, that is why I say for this man of his age, he is amazing because young people might have this by now. This is some problem with ergonomics that could cause some injury, back injury, limbs injury, joints, especially the abdomen, the waistline. He did a good job. And also, we have all these chemical compounds exposed, and some of them, as I read, the MSDS, they are actually skin and eye irritants, okay, and could also affect respiratory system in some manner, which I think only known best to industrial hygienists who might be watching this video by now. SHO, you know this better than I do. Okay, please check it out. And when a worker is in a bad health situation, is not fit to work in terms of health, that would cause an environmental impact, namely medical waste, and that would cause an environmental impact in terms of air pollution if those medical waste goes to incineration. Okay, so that's one cycle. In that way, if we begin from environmental aspect and go down to health, there's also an effect for the fact that these bricks, this what you call used furnace brick can cause some irritation because of the compound used in the manufacture of the brick, and also the compound used in sticking the brick to the walls of the furnace, and can cause some health problem in that way. And when a worker is affected in terms of health and allowed to work, he is exposing himself to some form of accident, and he might not be able to perform to follow the safety procedure closely, and might make mistake. When he make mistake, it will cause some form of spillage, some form of trip of machines or materials, spillage, etc., loss of containment, etc. And SHO, you know that better than I do. So that would cause some form of environmental impact as well in terms of material losses, and those spills or losses are environmental aspects which eventually causes pollution. It could be air pollution, it could be soil contamination. So that is how the best that I could do to link with my limited knowledge, to link safety, health, and environment as a management system, to look into how to perform this particular activity, which is furnace repair. Okay, like to discuss environmental management system now. Remember what is environmental management system? ISO 14001 version 2015. Environmental management system is a management system which manage environmental aspects. Simple as that. How? By fulfilling compliance obligations and addressing risk and opportunities. There you are, it's all there. Okay. And most importantly, what is environmental aspect? So we pick one. For the purpose of this discussion, we have picked used furnace brick. Okay, so what have we got here? Used furnace bricks. which is output or input from this activity. Remember, this activity is repairing the furnace. What comes into this activity are fresh, new bricks and all its other associated chemicals or affiliates or auxiliary parts and materials. Okay, we are not discussing in detail that one. Simple one. So what is coming out from this furnace repair is definitely the old furnace brick. So I call it used furnace bricks, or you can use the word spent furnace bricks or waste furnace bricks, whichever is more comfortable and more commonly used in your organization. But remember, whatever terms you use here, please, if it is a bit peculiar, please explain it to external auditors so that they could understand well what you're saying. Otherwise, there could be misled information and they might make some false judgment. Okay, to avoid that, use a proper term for the environmental management system. Now, used furnace bricks, they are output aspect, remember, coming out of this particular activity. So, since they are output environmental aspects, what does it mean? It means it will cause subsequent interaction with the environment and may cause or can be potentially able to cause what is called environmental impact. So what happens next to the used furnace brick is actually the downstream of its life cycle. Therefore, the impact to the environment is based on the downstream of used furnace bricks life cycle. So that is how we look at the used furnace bricks from the life cycle perspective. Since it is an output aspect, we look downstream. Therefore, eventually we'll find that this used furnace brick shall be sent to perhaps a secure landfill or a sanitary landfill whereby it will be laid to rest in peace, hopefully, in a secure landfill. And what will happen, knowing bricks are from natural resources, mainly mineral extract of the natural resources, what will happen eventually upon time, upon acidity of the soil, upon other biological degradation by the soil ecosystem, what would happen? It will eventually release residuals or intermediates that can be leaching into the soil and cause soil contamination. That's how I conclude. For the moment, due to my lack of knowledge, the environmental impact associated to used furnace bricks is soil contamination. And of course, eventually over time could be some leachate that comes out from the sanitary landfill or even the secure landfill. Secure landfill is not absolutely secure, my friend. The earth moves. The PVC lining will soon crack. The compacted clay lining and base will soon crack and be fractured somewhere along the line. Nothing is rigid on this earth, okay? And eventually all these leachates or water residue coming out from the degradation process of these bricks and other materials in the secure landfill might find its way, infiltrate the vadose zone of the mesosphere, and get down to some uh, aquifer and then contaminate groundwater, or maybe might flow into the nearest ditches or some other waterways, and thus causes what I would term as, or many people has been using this term, water pollution. It would be nice if I were to use the word groundwater pollution. You can do that. That will be the ultimate, perhaps, endpoint of these output environmental aspects if we dump them in landfills. Okay. Now, what are the things? What are other environmental aspects that might be of interest here? I found that this furnace is actually an electrical furnace. A lot of electrical energy is being used, but I don't take electrical energy as aspect because it's very common to all by now. Let's take something a bit different for this discussion. I chose the electrodes. This is actually, if I'm not mistaken, is an arc furnace. It uses electrodes, it is to melt all these metals, and electrodes come in as input. The old spent electrode will be an output aspect. Right now, I just write the word electrodes. It means fresh electrodes, new parts. Electrode comes into this activity as input aspect. Therefore, its associated probable environmental impact should be related to where the electrodes originated. Of course, if we look in that direction, it will be looking at the upstream of its life cycle. How was electrode made? Where was it made? What materials made up the electrode, from which factory, and eventually the raw mat that constitute the electrodes. We found ourselves, well, I found myself landing in carbon black, and there's some special treatment on that to make it an electrode. There are some other materials which is being involved, and all of them are from oil and gas industry. And that will incur a demand for more crude oil, a demand for more fossil reserve in our seabed where the oil drilling is taking place. Therefore, the popular environmental impact when more resources are being excavated out or drilled out, in this sense, is resource depletion. Yeah. Okay. And of course, my main concern is the geological structure, as usual, as how I discussed about diesel in earlier videos. And this damage apparently seems unrepairable or beyond repair. No human technology is keen enough to take a look at the damage from oil drilling and repair them. It's been left with just drilling mud, which has been, filtered and what they call pump it down there to fill up the cavity is some form of displacement. Now, but the geological structure is actually permanent damaged. Yeah, so that is about the electrodes as an input. Environmental aspect, we look at the upstream of its life cycle, and then we found those environmental impact. What about something a bit different, which only people in this activity would know? I found out about the media that they use to bind those bricks to the brick walls across the arc, you know, and the mortar is also being laid across over here and the entire space up here. And this is the item that you see here, and this is what it is in the pail. It's been mixed with some form of other chemicals, and this refractory mortar is actually an import material. It is a special media. It appears almost like a grouting agent, but it is not really in the exact proportion of materials, because in this particular refractory mortar, which is fresh, which is new, it's just the pail is just being opened, and I got hold of the MSDS. It contains aluminum silicate, aluminum oxide, and silica amorphous. I think you know about that. Kaolin, crystalline silica. Yeah, he has got to mix water with that also. And there are some borate, sodium salt, decahydrate. And when I look at MSDS, it is causing, there are several precautions in handling the material, and it does cause, apparently reported in the MSDS, eye and nose irritant and skin irritant as well. So, knowing all these materials uh, as an environmental aspect, we now try to find out what kind of environmental aspect, since it comes into this activity as an input aspect. So, as usual, what form of environmental impact would it pose potentially? Therefore, since it is an input environmental aspect, we'll look at this material from the upstream of its life cycle perspective. So we found that it is coming from natural resources, therefore it may pose a risk to the environment in the form of natural resource depletion. And the mining work and the petroleum work all involves excavating, thus damaging environmental structures, and that would be, in my opinion, causing geological damage. Yeah, so in terms of environmental management, we got to identify, address, we got to address risk and opportunities. So let's take a look at the risk part here. And apparently, the risk is legal liability, because as where I'm from, these used furnace bricks are regarded as scheduled waste. And I think my client was able to get sanitary landfill permit for it. I'm not sure. They have tried. I believe they have got it. And mismanagement of the disposal of these used furnace bricks has associated legal liability in itself. So that's one of the risks. And it does contain some level of toxic constituent, and it is being transported from this premise to other parts of the country, namely perhaps to transit off-site transit station and eventually onto the roads and eventually finally into secure landfills or sanitary landfills somewhere. So in terms of environment, it is transboundary. It can cause an impact not to this waste generator, which is this factory, but the impact can be affecting other inhabitants of other areas, and that could be bad. Okay, but what is the opportunity that one could think of from this particular waste? Look, for me, as you know, my slogan, waste doesn't exist, is still stand up to this point of time. I have seen my associates in Australia, in the UK, in Germany. There was, yeah, in a few parts of the world, whom are not my associates, but I read their journals. They were able to convert waste into renewed products. For example, plastic waste. It is the issue here in this country a couple of years ago, and many countries, including India, which I think pioneered this, were able to melt the plastic bottles and all other plastic packaging and use it uh, to what they call for road use, for road what they call to cover potholes onto roads, which is amazing. For me, this brick looks good, despite the fact that it is used furnace bricks. It has some form of contaminants which can be toxic. But why not we use our technology and convert it into renewed bricks? Perhaps doing on-site treatment. Perhaps somebody could do treatment on this brick. Well, you may need a wastewater treatment plant for that, but for me, it's okay. Instead of sending it to sanitary landfill, why not we make some product out of it? And we can improve the system of the furnace, perhaps by using regenerated, used furnace bricks. Regenerated meaning regenerate. Can we think of something? Or maybe perhaps we are able to develop some alternative materials to be used as furnace brick, or the furnace itself can be redesigned to cater for the current global climate change and pandemic era, whereby we might redesign furnaces by using some technology, using existing cheaper materials, and use it as materials for a furnace. With a renewed furnace technology, I believe if we put in enough effort, we might be able to arrive to that. I believe I'm not wrong. There is always a solution to any problems. It's just a matter of we want to put our rods and cones thinking into it deep enough and some brainstorm. We can come up with something. I'm more concerned of the environmental management. I'm more concerned of the resources that we are using today. And I'm fighting for resource conservation so that our life is not so expensive to live as it is today. Okay, So I believe we have covered the environmental management part of the link between safety, health, and environmental management. I believe this video has given enough information, selected few but substantial for comprehension. Yeah. So thank you, YouTube. Thank you for your time, for your subscription. I'm honored to have you. And as a Muslim, I wish everybody in Bahasa Melayu semoga kurniakan apa yang dihajat, dipohon dan dicita-cita, dipelihara daripada bala, bencana, musibah, penyakit serta maksiat, dan dikurniakan kesenangan, keselamatan, kesejahteraan, kebahagiaan, dan kejayaan kehidupan di dunia dan di akhirat. Somebody like to translate that. It will make a lot of people happy. So thank you very much. Until we meet in the next video, inshallah. As for now, I wish everybody Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.